Welcome to Death on Clare Island, Chapter 19. The beeping of the phone broke my sleep. I reached for the alarm clock. Just a few minutes after 9:30 in the evening. "Call me, boss," Philly's message said. "It's important." She also mentioned that she was on her way to a dinner hosted by Research in Motion, honoring women in technology, so I'd have to call her tomorrow. Sharon, on the other hand, hadn't responded to the message I'd left. As I drove toward the Brownsville flats, I considered about what I'd say to her. It was time to apply a bit more pressure in order to find out more about her relationship with both Matthew and Raymond. Some of the questions I planned to ask were about the argument I'd witnessed between her and Nolan when I exited the Wagon Wheel pub. I wanted to know the last time she'd sailed with Matthew on the Shroom, and had it just been the two of them, or did they have company? And if they did have company, who was it? I also intended to bring up Lucia and her relationship with Matthew, even though Sharon probably wouldn't like that. Perhaps, in an emotional moment of anger, she would finally divulge what she knew about Matthew's activities and why she'd grown frigid on him even though they hadn't broken their engagement. When I turned onto her street, I saw a crowd gathered in front of her place. I wondered if it was one of the many set dancing events that Irish towns and villages hold during the summer. Maybe that's why she hadn't called. Then I saw the flashing lights, an ambulance, and a blue and white van displaying the word "Guard Up." Reversing the car, I drove several blocks away before parking. Sticking my shaking hands in my pockets, I wandered back to Sharon Street and joined the throng, who congregated on the sidewalk and spoke in hushed tones. "What's going on?" I asked one of the women standing near me. She bowed her head toward Sharon's place. "The lady who lives in that house? Someone said she was strangled." I held my breath and prayed for a miracle. "Is she dead?" I asked. "Yes, poor girlie, strangled with a pair of tights. Lord have mercy on us. Where is this country heading?" Several women blessed themselves and nodded in agreement. "How did it happen? Was it a burglary?" This was a logical assumption, I thought, considering the priceless paintings hanging in Sharon's home. I wanted to believe it had nothing to do with me and my investigation. "One of the lads had a key, you see," said someone else, who looked to be about 40. "He used to do odd jobs for her, mowing the lawn and such. When she's in Dublin, he'd bring in her mail and newspapers. She didn't like anyone knowing when the place was empty. Well, my Tommy sees the newspaper tossed in the driveway, and doesn't he decide to take it in? And there she is, stretched out in the living room, dead. Tommy came straight over home and we called the guards. He and his father are talking to them now." The woman halted, bursting into tears. "Just imagine that my boy could have been killed." The other women formed a circle around her. "Did you see anyone?" I asked, rapidly searching the crowd for familiar faces. Was the killer still here? I wondered, gloating over his or her handiwork. And was he or she waiting for the opportunity to do the same thing to me that had been done to Sharon and Matthew? "No, oh no," the woman told me between sobs. "My son nearly died with fright. He took flight out of there like the devil was on his heels." Everyone blessed themselves again. "She was such a pretty thing," another woman said. "Who could have committed such a wicked deed?" They all shook their heads in amazement. "That's what beauty and wealth get you," someone else chimed in. "Trouble. Trouble always follows the pretty ones. You know, her boyfriend died recently from drugs. Maybe she was involved in that? Just because she had a good job doesn't mean she didn't associate with the wrong kind of people." Several police appeared along the sidewalk, requesting everyone to return to their homes. I immediately turned away, as I didn't want them to spot me in front of Sharon's home. I expected I'd hear from them soon enough anyway. My voice, after all, was on her answering machine. My efforts to figure out what happened to Matthew had stirred up someone. That much was very clear now. And that someone was most likely the same person who choked out Sharon's life. And as I trudged in the direction of the golden thread, I ached with the knowledge that I might be at least partially responsible for her death. The golden thread was closed, and it struck me that I should have realized that. There was so much I should have realized. I was like a sleepwalker, acting my part in a nightmare from which I couldn't awake. I needed to talk to someone, to feel the kindness and warmth of a human hand. So I continued toward the davit, hoping that Aunt Georgina would be there. When I finally reached it, my feet were dragging as if blocks of cement weighted them down. Aunt Georgina sat in the same corner booth from 3 hours earlier. So much had changed in that time, I thought miserably. At least her face seemed like a beacon shining down from heaven onto hell. "I tried to reach you at the house," she said. "I hope you'd come here. Have you heard about Sharon?" "I just came from her neighborhood," I said. Then I slumped down into the seat across from her, wishing its sturdiness could shore up the vulnerability that now clung to my aching bones like an anchor. The waitress appeared, placing a cup of tea in front of me. Aunt Georgina reached over and tugged my hands. "What happened, Star?" "She's dead. Whatever happened, she's dead. So it's over." But even as I said this, I knew deep down that it wasn't over for me, until I'd succeeded or failed at finding who had destroyed both Matthew and Sharon's life. I'd done what the police had done to Matthew. I'd judged Sharon guilty, and I was wrong. Sharon's blood was on my soul, and I wouldn't rest until I'd found her killer. Aunt Georgina's forehead wrinkled and her eyes widened with concern. Then her hands gripped mine. "This stops here, Star. You have to go to the guards and tell them about the threatening letter and the car incident in Dublin. I'm sure that I'll have an opportunity to speak with them soon," I said, "and I won't have to initiate the contact." "Oh? Why not?" "I left a message on Sharon's answering machine about wanting to meet tonight. Once they hear that, and remember that I was on Clare Island when Matthew was found, I'm sure they'll be very interested in me." Chills worked their way down my spine. Is this how Sharon felt just before she died, I wondered? Who strangled her? Why didn't I get there earlier? I might have prevented her death. This once I might have had the power to save others from grief. "Okay, but why wait?" Aunt Georgina demanded, raising her voice as she gripped the edge of the table. "You tell the guards what you know and that you're working for Bridget. Then you call her and tell her you're out of it. Star, this is a Garda matter now. Bridget will understand. My God, girls, she won't want you involved after this." Sharon's face appeared in my mind, and I sensed her fear. She was alone, cold, and terrified. Then the image disappeared, and I shivered, even colder, numb to my own fears. "No, I won't do that," I shot back, barely able to recognize my own angry voice. "Why not?" "I'm not giving up, Georgina. I'm going to find whoever did this. And I'm not really doing it for Bridget anymore. Now I'm doing it for myself, Matthew, and Sharon." A surge of energy moved upward from the base of my spine like a wildfire spreading through brush. Its warmth left no room for aches and chills. I rose, threw some money on the table, and gathered up my belongings. "I've got to do this," I said. "So don't try to stop me." Then I touched Aunt Georgina's shoulder and could sense her fear. She didn't say anything back, however. I turned and headed out into the night.